I had previously, before about 2 weeks ago, remade my video about owning Canadians, and I found that I did not review that video before I submitted it to YouTube, and I discovered that it was one of those videos which I made with a voice that I hate. One of those days when my throat would tighten up, because I guess, as I probably, which I did say before, is due to, I guess, hormonal fluctuations, and my throat would tighten up, and then I would be screeching and struggling to push my voice out. So here it is. I'm going to make it again. I feel it is so, I'm so obsessed with wanting to make this right and to tell you how I feel. Is that as in my previous video, I'm just so afraid my throat is going to tighten up again. But in my previous video, I'm kind of disturbed for many years when people have come forward to claim authorship of a piece of prose that I had written. I wrote it around, I'm not sure whether it was 2001 or 2002. And I want to tell people the reasons and the ambience and the condition, a situation that was swirling, that was around me at that moment. And I want to explain verse by verse of that piece of prose and why I wrote each verse, what was going through my mind. No one can explain to you why those verses were written. And because of that, they are not the true authors of this piece of prose. This piece of prose is the one when you put into the search, when you search in Google, why can't I own a Canadian? And you will find this piece addressed to Dr. Laura. Before the time when this controversy about Dr. Laura came about, I was an avid listener of Dr. Laura. I didn't know she was a conservative, whatever it is. You know, I just thought it was so hilarious listening to the kind of questions that she was addressing and the way she addressed it. I thought she was a comedian. I mean, I thought she was really a comedian trying to make fun of people. So it was so, and then as the days went by, I kind of realized what she was really doing, and it came to the time when she was, having this crap about gays. So yeah, and the letters that were addressed to her was written like, "Dear Dr. Laura." So I wrote this open letter, and I didn't want people to know that I wrote that letter. I didn't want anyone to know. My cat is at the door and wants me to let her in. Just hold on. It's a huge 13-pound Maine Coon cat. Look at her. Look at her. Oh my God. Anyway. So I wrote it. And at the time I was kind of naive. In the year 2001, 2002, I was going through a divorce, and I was kind of full of frustration. So I didn't want, and there were reasons I didn't want people to know that I was writing such a piece of, which I thought was kind of crappy piece of prose. I didn't want people to know, because I have been known, because at the time I didn't know I was autistic. What I saw as normal communication, normal speech and writing, people tell me that I was crazy, split personality kind of person. So I didn't want people to know. And I kind of took company time to write that piece of prose. I initially had read another piece that was written by someone and posted on a UK website, which had the characteristics, of a .uk URL. So I know, of course, it's a UK website anyway. That was written about with the same, not with any of my kind of sarcasm, but about that subject. And I took that as an inspiration, and so I wrote, "Dear Dr. Laura." And in my upbringing, I was kind of taught that you should, before you criticize somebody, in order for that person to, pay attention and be receptive to your criticism, you have to thank that person and to praise, and if possible, praise the person of what the person has done, So I kind of thank her for being so anti-gay, like, yeah, you are serving some kind of public service for being so anti-gay. And at that time, there was a question in my synagogue about the obligation to have burnt sacrifices, about sacrificing of a burnt bull on the altar. And there was this, so that our rabbi was addressing this question. It just so happened at the time, so it came into my mind, and that's why I wrote about this paragraph, this paragraph about the bull, offering the bull as a sacrifice. And also at the time, for years prior, a couple of years prior to that, I and another colleague of mine would be microwaving our lunch with really exotic smelling ingredients. Both of us like to have very garlicky taste in our food. And I had things like shiitake mushrooms, which and if I put too much of them, it kind of have a very pungent smell when you microwave them. At times my boss would walk to me and say, I can't use the microwave that was in the office. I had to use the one in the cafeteria, in the huge cafeteria, not in the one in the office. So that was how bad. And I thought, well, that was kind of played into this, that people don't like the odor of my food, like a burnt offering. People don't like, shall I smite these people? So that was behind my mind when I was writing this. And the other thing about about selling my daughter. Why would I want to let people tell people that I would like to sell my daughter? Is kind of weird and crazy, and it's another reason I didn't want people, you know. I after I wrote this piece of prose, I spent about maybe an hour or two of my company time looking for a website that would kind of accept it anonymously. So I found this website where it's actually maybe a provide feedback, and I just copied and pasted it onto their reply box, put in fictitious identities and emails. So I don't know, I can't recall what site it was. It would have been my local country music radio station. It could be, I don't know. I have no idea. And then the next day, I provided a sanitized copy. Not sanitized. A modified copy. I kind of cleaned up a little bit. So there are two versions of what I wrote. They look the same. It's just that the other copy, which I provided to my department head, had the grammar cleaned up. And my department head was a Mormon. So the morning after he had read it, he called me. And I was so scared, so frightened, scared, that he would tell me, "You are such a weird guy, I'm going to fire you." No, he told me it was so entertaining that he forwarded a copy to his friends and relatives in Utah. He was from Utah. He was working in Maine. So this piece, but I originally wrote it in with British spelling and some distinctly British patterns of language. I took about an hour or so to clean it up, to remove any appearance that it sounded British or and I converted nature. The spelling were in American English. How many people in Maine at the time wrote with in British English spelling and style. I was really affected. Could be identified through my writing style. So anyway, if I told you the avatars that I used on the internet, and you went through some or all my postings, you would agree, you would see the similarity between the style that I write or that I troll being, with this piece. And someone who had been close to me when she read this piece, and she immediately knew it was my style of writing. So, and that explains why this piece is prominently found in the Humanists of Utah website. I guess because somehow my Mormon department heads forwarded it to some of these friends of his who then forwarded it. And I think that when it says at the bottom, anyway, it says your devoted fan Jim. No, I ended this prose with your devoted fan, and I think someone by the name of Jim just put it after that, and people mistook this person Jim as saying your devoted fan Jim. No, I just ended the letter to this open letter to Dr. Laura with your devoted fan. So on the third verse, at that time, also there was a discussion in the synagogue about whether a woman who is having her menstrual cycle, if she should sleep with her husband, So that was what was behind my mind when I wrote about the third verse. And of course, if someone asks a woman, it's offensive. So then I had this colleague with whom I didn't have very good rapport or relationship. We kind of argue over strategy and things, and well, he was kind of anti-gay. So, and he was also kind of very, I think, anti-Mexican. And a question, and he would be, I think, if I remember, he would be criticizing about the Mexicans making across the border, And then the question was, what are Canadians? And I had a colleague, a Jewish colleague, would ask him, what about Canadians coming through the borders? Well, why aren't the Canadians a problem? And according to this anti-gay colleague of mine, he would say, well, it's all right to mistreat Mexicans, but it's not all right, to mistreat Canadians. Canadians are different. So that's why I was so I was so angry with him. What do you mean? What's wrong? Why can't we enslave Canadians like we would enslave Mexicans? Why? Why can't I own Canadians? And yet I could own Mexicans. Why? Why could we do that? So that's a question. That was the reason for this. I was really angry with my colleague when I wrote this. I was making a point. And also this, this guy, he says, well, he was asked like, what about the Sabbath? People violate the Sabbath. And what about, if a gay lifestyle is wrong in the Bible, so the Sabbath, it's a death penalty. You'll be stoned to death for violating Sabbath, and you're mowing your lawn on a Saturday, or even a Sunday. And then he was like saying it's not that serious. Oh, come on, what is that? So, and then came to the question. This is an ongoing discussion between my Jewish colleague and this guy. My Jewish colleague who was married to a Baptist. So anyway, a liberal Baptist. I've never heard of a liberal Baptist, but she was kind of liberal Baptist. So anyway, and my anti-gay colleague was asked, what about shellfish? The Bible says it's an abomination to eat shellfish, and he said, well, no, shellfish is a lesser sin, a forgivable sin. Eating shellfish is a negligible sin compared to homosexuality. Who gave him that authority, that papal authority, or that whatever the theological authority to say that eating shellfish is a lesser abomination. The Bible clearly states it's an abomination, equal, or maybe worse than homosexuality. So, and I was frustrated by his answers. He clearly did not know the Bible very well. He was just making his own laws just to hate gays. Okay. And then over the years, I have been kind of intrigued by the mystery, where we have many. I've come across many devout pastors who wore glasses or contact lenses, so they don't have perfect eyesight. And so it was not me actually. And then I was wondering, the Bible states that, if you have a defect in your eye, you're not acceptable in the presence of God. So what about these people? Are they acceptable in the presence of God? Or no? They're supposedly devout pastors. And then about maybe a week or 2 days before I wrote this, my Jewish colleague said he would get a haircut, and after he got a haircut, it looked so much neater. And I kind of wondered. The Bible said you're not supposed to shave your side bands, and then he did. He shaved it. So doesn't he know the Bible? He's Jewish. Why did he do that? Okay. But then there is this one verse about a dead pig. This is a very, very odd paragraph here that nobody could explain why it's there. I tell you why I put it there. I was born in a Muslim country, and I was reading the news, the online news, about a certain scandal that was going on. It was a group of business that was supplying footballs. When I say football, it's the real international football, the round one. The football to the schools and to various institutions. And they were caught using pig skin, making those footballs. And I found that they do use pig skin to make rugby balls. I'm not sure about American football. When I wrote this piece, I was thinking about international round football, British football, and rugby. I was not thinking about American football, but it does apply. So, and I was thinking, like, if I were to pick the ball up, you do pick the ball up in football. In American football, we pick the ball up all the time. So I was thinking that there was a Bible verse that says, you're not supposed to touch a dead animal, right? I mean, if the animal died by unclean means, you can't touch it. You can't touch its skin. Now, I don't know if it has been made in a leather, is it all right to touch, even if the animal died in an unclean way? Is it all right to touch its fur? I don't know, but I was just squeezing out a point here. See, that's the reason why there is this passage about the pig skin, dead pig skin. Nobody can explain this because they didn't write it. They didn't write it. They didn't No, that it was because I wrote it out of a controversy and scandal in a Muslim country. And then I wrote about an uncle. I didn't have an uncle. I grew up in a farm, a chicken farm. So we did have a little bit of crops, and we didn't plant the same things all the time. But I know that in this country we don't really rotate our crops. So I just came up with an uncle. Maybe I was thinking about my anti-gay colleague, and I was kind of transferring all these things onto him, and picturing him as that horrible uncle, because he had no qualms using cussing, right? He had no qualms, right? He would say, "What?" Anyway, couldn't I just burn this guy at a private family affair, like they do with people who sleep with their in-laws? I do remember now that at a time our rabbi in the synagogue was discussing about the advantages of rotating your crops, about organic farming, to using biblical principles to reduce or eliminate the need for fertilizers and pesticides. So it was just exactly at that time, or maybe it could have been like a month or so before that we were having this sessions that our rabbi was giving. So that's why that was what was going on in my mind too when I wrote that paragraph. So as I said, I thank Dr. Laura, and I ended it with your devoted fan. I didn't put in Jim at all. Someone added in there.